This guide will run you through the use of the disaster management system, which is used internally by the emergency services and for the disaster management system personnel, and also the external application, which is used primarily by the public to report a disaster and to view disasters that are currently being tracked in the local area. Firstly, we'll begin by going through the internal application from the disaster management system. So basically, we've built everything here through Visual Studios and open it up in Firefox. And this will be the first screen. You can log in by hitting the Login tab, typing in the username as admin, and the username's password is disasters. This will also be in the README as well if you need to know that information. Hitting enter, we get into the main page of the system. Up the top here, we have the current user that's logged in, the navigation. We've also got our Twitter feeds here, showing at the moment just the Queensland Fire and SES Twitter feeds. If we scroll down slightly, we can see the disasters that are currently being tracked. They're here in Brisbane. We can view the details, go through and select the various details for a specific disaster. Here on the map, we have where the disasters were populated from the disasters being tracked database. So basically, a disaster comes in from the external application. We can click here to manage those. And at the moment, you'll see that there's two disasters that have been reported by the public. The first one being the fire, and the second one being the flood, which is located here at that postcode. So we've received those two disasters, so we can go back to home. And seeing as we already have that fire disaster being tracked, we can put this water disaster into the system. So we click on the water disasters link, and that takes us through to the page where we can input all the disaster information. We've got that currently being tracked. So we can create a new one. So we can type in here that it's just the water or flood. The location is Brisbane. Postcode is 4012. The severity can be 10, and it's a scale between 1 and 10. The fatalities could be 5. We're assigning a unit, which would be probably the police or ambulance, because they're the ones that are currently available to deploy. The unit status could be en route. Time on site, they probably haven't arrived yet, so we'll just leave that as a 0. The cost at this stage is unknown until the disaster cleanup has been finalised. And comments could be the Brisbane CBD. So that's all the information that the database needs. So now we can hit create. And that will go through and add the disaster to our currently being tracked. It will provide the comments here. And we'll also update our drop pins on our map. Alrighty. Also too, down the bottom here we have a graph, which is currently just tracking fatalities. You can change between bar and pie charts to show the different fatalities. This could obviously track different statistics such as costs or how frequently disasters are occurring and that kind of thing. Now, if we go back to the home page, you'll notice here now that there's an extra disaster that's being tracked. And we can click the details of that, and that will actually view up and bring up that disasters information right here. If we click on the services details tab, we can view all the services that are currently located in the database and to whether they're available or unavailable and the hours that they've been on site. We can then go through and edit that information or delete service if it's been taken off the system altogether. Currently, the system does not track the actual hours on site correctly to display whether a team has been there for a specific length of time or not and needs to be pulled out. If we go to staff details, that would show all the staff that are actually located within that unit. So you can go through and actually add in a staff member, the staff services number, which could be Fire 001, their name and their position. So just back to the home page again, you can go through and create any number of disasters, and it will actually log it in the system. So now we've got the updated storm disaster there, the current status, and the time that the disaster was recorded in the database, and a little drop pin there of where the storm disaster is currently located. If you want to log in as just a user, you do get specific information shown to you. It actually is restricted from what the admin can actually see. And you'll now notice that various links here are now missing. You can still see all the disaster information though, and you can obviously enter into all the databases as required. Here, what we've got is the public's GUI that they'll be accessing to report a disaster or to view current disasters. Now, if you've just watched the previous video, which was in relation to the internal application, we would have put in a few disasters here. We would have put in a flood, a storm, and a fire disaster. They're present in the system. And we also would have seen that incoming disasters was managed by the information that was sent from this application. So if we wanted to report a disaster, so we've seen a fire that's happened in our local area, we can go in here and put in a fire. We might actually change it and we might use a storm. So we can enter the postcode here as 4053 and the comments there being major storm damage. And we can hit submit. Now, once we've submitted this information, it actually stores it in the disaster database in the incoming disasters table, like I showed you in the previous video. And then we can go back to actual map. Now, eventually this map would actually display similarly to the map in the internal application. We'd use some Google Maps and actually put a nice little drop pin in here so that the public can see straight away if there's a disaster in their local area and zoom in and out as required. So basically now we've just submitted that. We can come to incoming disasters and we've just seen that that storm disaster we just submitted has just been there. We did do one previously just for testing, so there's now 2 in there. So we'll go back to the external application. Now, we've reported that storm disaster, so where we can all see it. And when we come into the storm disasters tab, we can actually see that once the internal application has reported that storm disaster, that it will show up here in the storm disasters area. The same with our fire disasters. There's currently being a fire disaster being tracked and is currently located here. We can also search for a disaster by typing in fire disaster. And it will bring up the disasters that are currently being tracked in the system with those specific keywords. At the moment, the keywords are fairly specific, so that it has to be the actual fire disaster being typed in here. We could also type in storm disaster, and it will bring up the list of storm disasters. So that's about it for the external application, which is viewed by the public. They can obviously go through and select and to view the disasters located and reporting a disaster to the internal application. So that's about it. If there's any other questions, please see the README as to how to run these applications and any other information that you might need. Thanks very much for watching.